Hello everyone, my name is Don Preston, President of Preterist Research Institute. Welcome to Preston's Ponderings. I'm sharing with you some of my ponderings on Matthew 16:27 and 28. We have already seen that in Matthew 16:27, when Jesus said, "The Son of Man will come in the glory of the Father with his angels, and shall reward every man according as his work shall be. And verily I say unto you, there are some standing here which shall not taste of death until they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom with power and great glory," that he was drawing directly from Isaiah chapter 40, where the voice in the wilderness said, "Prepare the way of the Lord." And when the Lord comes, notice Isaiah 40, verse 10 and 11. It's critical, okay? "Behold, the Lord God shall come with a strong hand, and his arm shall rule for him. Behold, his reward is with him, and his work before him." Now, very quickly, here's what I want to do. You see, one of the most common attempts to deal with Matthew 16:27 and 28 is to say, well, look, Matthew 16:27 is dealing with Jesus is coming in judgment, but verse 28 is Jesus is coming in his kingdom. The kingdom came on Pentecost, or verse 28, the coming in the kingdom was the transfiguration, but verse 27 is the end of human history. Pardon me. So attempts are made to divorce and to divide verse 27 from verse 28. Verse 27 is judgment, verse 28 is the kingdom. But that won't work, folks. Why? Because of the prophetic source from which Jesus is drawing. Now, remember, Isaiah chapter 40 foretold the coming of the Lord in power, to rule, and to reward. Now, what did it mean for the coming of the Lord to come in power and to rule? Well, it means one thing: the kingdom. So Isaiah chapter 40 is predicting the coming of the Lord in his kingdom. But guess what? Isaiah chapter 40, the same identical verse, tells us that the coming of the Lord to rule, in other words, to establish the kingdom, is the coming of the Lord with judgment and reward. Oh, wait a minute. There aren't 2,000 years between the coming of the Lord to establish the kingdom and to judge and reward in Isaiah chapter 40. Where do we get the idea of slipping 2,000 years between those two concepts? No, they're the same. The coming of the Lord in power to rule and to reward, Isaiah chapter 40, is the identical coming. Oh, wait a minute. In Matthew 16:27 and 28, what do we find? The coming of the Lord with his judgment, or in judgment, to reward, which is drawn directly from Isaiah chapter 40. So Jesus is coming in Matthew 16:27. It is his coming in judgment and reward, which is Isaiah 40, verse 10 and 11. But Matthew 16:28 is Jesus is coming in his kingdom with power and great glory, which is also Isaiah chapter 40. Now, if the coming of the Lord in Isaiah chapter 40, the coming of the Lord in power, the coming of the Lord to rule, and the coming of the Lord in judgment and reward, if that's the same coming, and it certainly is, then since Jesus in Matthew 16:27 and 28 is speaking of his coming in judgment and reward and the kingdom, that means that verse 27 and 28 cannot be divided. They are united with one another. And by the way, what does that mean? It means that the kingdom and Jesus is coming in judgment, in power, in glory, to reward was going to be in the lifetime of that first century audience. Because remember, the coming of Matthew 16:27, 28 is the coming of Isaiah chapter 40. Same coming. The coming of Isaiah chapter 40 is the coming of the Lord in judgment and in the kingdom. But the coming of the Lord in judgment and the kingdom of Matthew 16:28 would occur in the lifetime of Jesus' first century audience. That means it wasn't Pentecost, okay? because Jesus didn't judge and reward on Pentecost. And that means it wasn't the transfiguration, because Jesus did not judge and reward at the transfiguration. This is talking about the coming of the Lord in judgment to reward when he came in the establishment of his kingdom in the lifetime of the first century audience. Well, guess what? That was at the fall of Jerusalem in AD 70. I'm going to vindicate that more in a later segment. For the time being, thanks for joining us for Preston's Ponderings. More to come. Don't go away.